Hi folks, my name's Ian Abelson. I'm the Stewardship Manager for Six Rivers Land Conservancy. We are a nonprofit land conservancy in southeast Michigan. Our service area covers 5 different counties. So we protect natural area in Oakland, Macomb, Lapeer, Genesee, and St. Clair counties. And I'm here in front of the beautiful Gallagher Creek Nature Park in Oakland Township because I wanted to do the StewTalk today a little bit on native plant gardens or pollinator gardens. I kind of go by both names. So pollinator gardens have become more and more popular in recent years, and there are a lot of good reasons for that. So first of all, pollinator gardens or native plant gardens are fantastic ecologically. They're really a great option to sort of do what you can to help out our local ecosystems, because the plants that we plant in a native plant garden are better for the pollinators, especially our insect pollinators like bees and butterflies, than other exotic or tropical flowers that we may otherwise plant. So we know that our native plants attract native pollinators, that they can come gather nectar from there, they can feed on those flowers, and they can gather pollen and help pollinate them as well. Whereas more tropical or exotic flowers, not all of those attract our native pollinators in the same way. So our native plants have co-evolved with the insects that are in our region for millions and millions of years. So they can always mechanically access at least some of our native plants, and they can always gather nutrients from that nectar as well. Whereas with the exotic plants, they may either not recognize those plants as a source of food, or they may mechanically not be able to get at the nectar in a way that they can gather nutrients for themselves. So it's great for the ecosystem. And second of all, our native plants tend to be able to take care of themselves pretty well. Once you've got them planted, once they're established, they don't tend to need as much fertilizer, nearly as much care, because they're used to our Michigan ecosystems. They're used to our winters, they're used to the sorts of summers that we get. So long as they're planted in the right environment, they tend to do pretty well on their own. Now, that being said, picking your plants for a native plant garden can be a little tricky, because it depends completely on your situation. What have you got in your native, in the area that you want to turn into your native plant garden? So first of all, when you're picking plants, you want to make sure those plants are from Michigan, but you want to narrow it down even more than that, because a plant that grows well in the southern lower peninsula of Michigan may not grow so well in the upper peninsula. So the Michigan State University Extension has our state divided into 3 regions: the southern lower peninsula, the northern lower peninsula, and the upper peninsula. And it has lists of plants that can be grown in each of those 3 regions. So that's a great resource to rule that out. But you've also got to consider things like, what's the moisture level in my area? Am I planting in really wet soils? Am I planting in drier, sandier soils? Because either of those factors will weigh in on which plants you want to try as well. And lastly, how much room have I got? Do I want to just plant small plants, like say cinquefoils, or do I have room to plant larger plants, like New England aster? And how much shade and how much sun are each of the various plants going to get in my garden? So there are a lot of factors to consider. If that all sounds a little overwhelming, again, I really recommend checking out those MSU extension links. We'll put those in the description of the video, and those can really help you figure out what kinds of plants are going to be best for your garden. But as some examples, I'll just go through a few of my personal favorites. So first of all, the milkweeds. We have a couple different varieties of milkweed throughout Michigan, but milkweeds are famous not just for being good sources of nectar for pollinators, but also especially because they host monarch caterpillars. So what that means is that the monarch butterflies, after breeding season, will lay their eggs on milkweeds. Those eggs will hatch into monarch caterpillars, and those caterpillars will happily feed on milkweed until they hit the point that they can pupate and turn into a butterfly. Now that does mean that if your milkweeds don't have sort of natural protectors around, like say ants that will try and protect aphid colonies on the milkweed so that they can extract honeydew from them, then those monarch caterpillars could absolutely decimate milkweed plants. So that is something to consider as well, but it is great for the health of our ecosystem to be able to increase those monarch populations, and they're a very pretty butterfly as well. There's even a smaller milkweed we have called butterfly weed. That's one of my personal favorites. I've heard it's a little finicky to grow, maybe not the easiest plant to get established and get going, but when it blooms, it's got these beautiful orange flowers. And orange is actually really uncommon of a color for a wildflower in Michigan. We've got a lot more white, yellow, even purple and blue wildflowers than we do orange ones, so they'll really stand out and really pop in a native plant garden. And speaking of plants that pop, there's also New England aster. So New England aster is really nice for two reasons. First of all, it gets really nice, bright purple flowers that are a very pretty color. But second of all, it's a pretty late bloomer. It tends to bloom in late summer, maybe early fall. And it's great when you're planting these native plants to spread out your blooming times, so that you have some plants that bloom in the early spring, some plants that bloom in the summer, some plants that bloom in late summer, early fall, so that you also got something, you've always got something going on in your garden, and you've always got something pretty both for you and something that's attractive to our native insects as well. And lastly, the last two I'll mention are the ones that we kind of see in the garden behind me. So this yellow flower is called Coreopsis. Coreopsis can be really nice, especially because there are varieties that grow really well in very dry soils. So there's a type called sand Coreopsis that's really nice in drier or sandier soils. And then we've also got something called the beard tongue, which I think deserves a place on the list for the name alone. There's a kind especially called foxglove beard tongue, which is one of my personal favorite wildflower names of all time. But they've got these really neat tubular structures to their flowers that allow long-tongued bees to help pollinate them. All right, well, that is about what I've got for this StewTalk. If you enjoyed watching the video today, and you want to learn more about our organization, you can visit sixriversrlc.org to learn more about Six Rivers Land Conservancy. And if you're interested in supporting our mission of protecting natural habitat in Southeast Michigan, first of all, we really appreciate it. You know, we are a nonprofit organization, so donations absolutely help us function. And you can find a link to donate at sixriversrlc.com/donate. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Stay safe.